Hello guys, I'm Benny from Cosplay. You're probably used to seeing mainly crafting videos on this channel, but today I'm gonna try something a little bit different. So Svetlana and I just released our new book about cosplay photography, which you can find on cosplay.com. And since I'm Svetlana's main photographer, I thought it would be a good idea to show you how I edit one of my photos from beginning to end. And I think this makes the most sense if I just do it live and talk over it, so excuse this weird video format and if there's any dog noises in the background, because I have literally no control over this, alright? So let's just dive in. Okay, so let me just close this. This is the program I'm using. That's called Camera Raw and it comes together with Photoshop. And if I'm taking a raw photo, that's basically how it looks like when I edit it. So it's a lot of sliders and a lot of options to go through. But I'm gonna try to keep this short and interesting. So yeah, that's the photo I took. That's one of Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn, Svetlana's costume, and we took the photo last year at Photocon in Poland. And as you can see, the weather was kinda like it wasn't raining, it wasn't sunny, it was something in the middle. And I'm gonna try to change this photo to look a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna make it look like it's in the rain. I'm gonna put some monsters in the background. And the first thing I can show you is the color temperatures first. That's the two sliders here on top. And what I'm gonna do is, here I can turn the picture more yellowish or more bluish, and I'm gonna get it a little bit more blue because I want it to look dark, dramatic and rainy. And then I'm gonna up the contrast a bit. That's the next slider here below. Not at the contrast, the exposures. Basically, when you take a photo, you can also set this on your camera, but if you take your photo in RAW, you can also change this later. So I can give it a little bit less or more exposure, and I want it to be a little bit brighter. Then I'm gonna add just a little bit more contrast. And the next highlight and shadow slider, you can see what this does. If you look here, for example, at the tree top, if I'm turning the highlights down, you can see a little bit more detail coming in, and if I'm turning it all the way up, it's gonna look really bright. But since it's gonna destroy Svetlana's skin tone, I'm just gonna decrease this value just a little bit here. And for the shadows, that's just basically the black parts, the darker parts here, the shadows. I'm gonna bring a little bit up so they're more visible and don't just look black in the photo. Okay, the whites and blacks pretty much does the same, so I'm not gonna touch those for now. And then for clarity, this basically can make the image look more soft or more dramatic. I'm not gonna go all the way here, but I'm gonna get something a little bit in the middle, so just a tiny bit more dramatic like this. And then the next slider is dehaze, and you can see because our weather for the shoot was kind of hazy, so there's like dust and water in the air. And if I dehaze that, you can see the picture gets a lot more clear. But since I wanted to look like it's raining, I'm actually gonna increase the haze a little bit, like this. That looks good. Gonna get the highlights down just a bit. And turn it a little bit more blue, like that. And then vibrance and saturation, that's pretty much the same. It just makes your picture more colorful or turn it more gray or black and white. And I'm just gonna add a little bit more color. Awesome. Okay. If you look down here in the option, you can like swap the before and after settings. You can see how the picture looked before I changed anything. That's a pretty stark contrast already, I think, and it looks way more I want it to look, which is bluish, a little bit more dramatic, and just what I'm going for with this. Okay, I think that looks good. So I'm gonna open the image, and that's gonna open it up in Photoshop. And what I did a little bit before this video is I looked up some screenshots from the game to find some cool watchers, which I'm gonna cut out later, like this one here, and put it on the background behind Aloy to the left and the right. So the monsters can look at her, and then I have some rain. It's basically just a black image with some white raindrops in front of it. You can find those on there's some stock image websites you can buy them from, or just Google for images. There's like plenty of stuff you can find. Okay, but the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change a couple of things about the picture before I bring some special effects in. And the first thing I always do is I'm fixing some errors in the picture, which is, for example, here there's some mosquito bites. Svetlana had in the forest some scars, and since her helmet drags her face down, there's like a couple of wrinkles on her chin I want to get rid of first. And I'm going to do that with the ironically named healing brush. That's what they call it here in Photoshop. And I'm only, for start, want to edit her chin. So I'm gonna grab the lasso tool, and that basically just lets me draw any kind of selection I want. So I don't hurt like the helmet pixels here. So I'm just gonna select her chin for now, like this area here. And that's gonna create a mask I can work in, so I don't touch anything outside of this here. So if I just like take a brush and a colorful picture, color like orange, and I just paint inside, you can see it only affects the area I marked here, right? And that means I can get my healing brush, where was it here, and go in and fix her folds on the chin. And if I hold down the Option key, or I think on the Windows PC it's Alt, I can like get a sample, for example, from her cheek or any area that doesn't have wrinkles in. Then I can use the sample to draw. And what this does is, as you can see, it kind of estimates what that area should look like and automatically creates like a smoother image. I'm just gonna grab a little sample here because I want it brighter, and then I draw over it. And that basically really quickly and roughly deletes the wrinkles here. It's not perfect, but I'm just gonna try to do this as a quick demonstration in the video so it doesn't take too long. So if I would do this, it would probably take a little bit longer. But just for the purpose of demonstration, I'm just gonna do this a little bit quick and more rough. Okay, that should be good enough. Then here some skin, the cheek parts drag down, so I'm just gonna grab some parts here. Draw it down a bit so it doesn't look like it's drawing her skin just as much. I'm just gonna create a nicer image, a nicer skin tone, and makes her look more comfortable, I guess, in her helmet. Okay, that looks good. Maybe this part here a little bit too. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit rid of the shadow here, just a little bit. Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna delete my selection. And then if you go up in Photoshop here to your history, you can click on this little photo symbol here at the bottom and create a snapshot. And what this does is you can compare the snapshots and see what you changed. Basically what I did is just I fixed some weird wrinkles on her chin, and she already looks a lot more interested, a lot more clean for the photo, I'd say. I'm also gonna grab the healing brush just to fix her mosquito bite here on the arm, which is like this reddish part here. Just gonna draw over it, and the program will automatically change the color to something that looks like all the areas around, basically. So I can get rid of this scar here by just drawing over it. And also, since Svetlana sewed in her push buttons on her backs, on her belt parts too late, and you can still see them from the outside, I can just quickly go in, zoop, and zoop here, and they're gone, and it looks much more professionally made. Okay, that's good. Some parts here on the costume. It's just some quick and dirty fixes. Okay. Nothing else. I could also go in and like get rid of all the wrinkly hair here on the side, but it's a little bit too detailed for the example I want to show here. And there's one more thing I want to change is there's like a really big flap here, which looks kind of ugly. It destroys her nice silhouette. So I'm gonna go into the filter options and choose liquify. And what this does is I can just take the finger symbol, the finger icon here, and I can drag around parts of the image. You see, like this. People mostly use it to like change their posture, so you can make like, you can can make your waist slimmer, make your boobs bigger, but it's not what I'm gonna do here for this picture. I just want to get rid of this little fabric fold here. So I'm just gonna grab it and just draw it a bit in, like this. Okay, get a little bit smaller. Maybe draw this part here out to even it out a bit. Like this. Okay, that looks better already. Okay, almost done. This, I mean, the string looks a little bit weird, but nobody's gonna notice anyway. And if I go out and hit the preview button, you can see what it does, and I think it already looks a lot more interesting. And there's more parts in the image I could fix like this, but I'm just gonna leave it at that as a demonstration of what it does. And I'm gonna continue. Right, so let's create another snapshot, see what this did. Okay, it's just minor details, but it's the details that matter, so why not? Then what I want to do next is increase the contrast of her armor parts a little bit. Because if you only take photos in natural light, sometimes like the part you want to take the photo of, which is the person in this case, and the background, they kind of blend together. So I want to add a little bit more contrast to the person, so it pops out a bit more out of the background, and I'm gonna grab the quick selection tool for that. I can also do this by creating like a path here with the pen tool. You can create paths, you can take the lasso and select areas, but I'm just gonna grab the quick selection tool. And what this does is, if I click on any part of the image, the tool will automatically try to select parts that look similar. So if I, for example, click here on her skin, it will select parts that look like the skin. So I have like a rough selection of her skin right here. And if I hold down Shift, I can add parts to it. Or if I hold down the Option or Alt key, I can subtract from it. And I'm gonna use this to select her armor, which is like here the bracer. Just gonna roughly select, and it doesn't matter if the selection looks kind of rough because there's so much detail in this image, nobody will notice later. And I'm doing this all the time, so I'm just gonna grab some rough selections of her armor parts, the breastplate, and take this bracer as well. Part of the costume here, maybe not the skin because I don't want to edit the skin too much just yet. Like this. Alright, maybe grab part of her helmet while I'm at it. Oh, maybe not. I'm not gonna. Don't want to touch the face too much yet. Let's just grab the belt part and the armor part here in front, and maybe the leg armor as well, because it looks kind of flat and too much in the background for me. Okay, should do it. Okay, so you can see I have like a rough selection of her armor, and then I can head over here to the adjustments. There's a couple of things you can do. You can like edit the contrast and brightness, the levels, the curves. You can like change the saturation or the color balance just for the selection I took here. And I'm gonna go into the curves, and you can see this creates like a mask of the area I selected. So if I change anything here, it will only affect the parts I selected before, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn up the contrast a little bit and make it look just a tiny bit more dramatic. Yeah, like this. Okay, that's good. So you can see it's like only minimal, but it creates just a bit more contrast and makes it more interesting to look at. So it doesn't all look the same, right? Okay. Alright, that looks good. Okay, let's do the same for her face. So I'm just gonna select her facial features, like this. Maybe get the shadowy parts of the helmets too. Don't forget the eye here. Okay. Gonna go into my curves again, so this creates another layer with another mask, and then I'm just gonna brighten it up a bit, add a little bit more contrast. Like this. So when I go out and I turn the layer off and on again, you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna brighten up her face. So in the overall image, you can, like, her face pops out a bit more. It doesn't go under, and it's not visible from all the other details in the picture. All right? Okay. That looks good. And maybe since it's alloy, I'm just gonna create one more selection of parts of her hair. Like this. These parts here. Just quick and dirty. Like that. Maybe get rid of the... Don't want to change the face, just the hair. Okay. And then I can go into the... I'm gonna do the saturation. And just add a little bit of, that's a bit much, just a little bit of saturation to her hair, so it looks more reddish, because Aloy's hair is really red and rusty in the game. Alright, but not too much since it's gonna rain, and you can't see much red in the rain. Okay, that looks good. Alright. Let's create another snapshot so we see what we did. It's basically just a bit more contrast to the person. A couple of edits, and it's already good enough for me now. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I want to bring in some rain to the picture. So I open up the one I found on the internet, and I will copy it over to this image. So I'm gonna paste it here. And that creates another layer. It's a little bit smaller because the photo I took is has a lot of resolution to it. So I'm gonna increase the size a bit so the raindrops look kind of natural sized compared to the person. Just kind of like that. Okay. And since the rain image is not big enough to fill up the whole image, I'm gonna, let's see if I can do that from here, duplicate the layer. So I have another version of it, and I'm gonna move that one down here. And you can kind of see where the seam is, so I'm gonna flip that one vertically. Alright, so it's not as obvious anymore. Create another copy. Bring it down here, flip it over again, like this. Alright, good enough. I'm gonna select all these 3 layers here and merge them together, which makes them into one layer. And then I go up here where there's normal in, that's kind of the layer effect you can add, and there's like different kind of things you can multiply. You can lighten them up, and I'm gonna go with linear dodge, in brackets add, whatever that means. And that basically adds the image, the layer on top, which makes the black parts invisible and overlays the white parts in the image, which is kind of what I want with my rain here. And you can see it's much too bright now. So what I want to do is create another duplicate of my layer, which I'm gonna hide for now. And it looks kind of weird that the rain is super in focus while much of the image is out of focus. So what I'm gonna do is go up to filter here, go to blur and Gaussian blur. Okay, and here I can set a radius, and you can see what this does is it blurs with that amount of radius I set. If I only go do a little bit, then it's gonna be a little bit blurry. And then if you go a lot, you can basically not see it anymore because it's so blurry. And I want to hit that sweet spot where it's just blurry enough that your eye is tricked to thinking it's in the background, right? So it's not on the same level as my character, but in the background actually. Just have to try to match the same blurriness as the background here, which should be, let's say, yeah, about 12 to 13 videos. That looks good. Okay, let's go with that. Right, I'm gonna decrease the opacity just a little bit so it's not as bright. Okay. And since I don't want any of the rain that's supposed to be in the background obstructing alloy. I'm gonna select the, where is it? The eraser tool. Yeah, go a little bit, come on. Okay, just decrease the size of my brush a little bit, so I can erase the parts that are obstructing Aloy's face and body. So it looks like it's only in the background behind her, which is what I want here. Okay, just the obvious parts. Like I said, I'm gonna do this just quick and dirty. Maybe the parts here above the stone as well. Alright, so now it looks like it's only in the background of Aloy. Okay. And then, to make it look more three-dimensional, I'm gonna bring in my other layer again, put it here on top. And for that one, since it's in the exact same position as the one behind, you can see that kind of creates a weird effect. I'm just gonna flip over this layer horizontally, so it looks more random. And then I will blur this just a tiny bit, so it's not totally out of place, but just a little bit. Just a little blurry. Yeah, because rain, when you take a photo of rain, unless you take it with like a really fast exposure time, it will not look in focus. So I'm gonna get maybe like a 5 to 6 radius here. That, let's go with this. And then add a little bit more motion blur in the same direction the rain goes. Like this. I can decrease the radius at the distance in this case here as well. So you can see what this does, it draws out the rain. Drops a little bit more. So the rain looks more aggressive. Okay, that looks good. And decrease the opacity here just a little bit as well, so it's not as aggressive. I can just, by changing the opacity, make it more stormy, or less stormy. Okay, let's go with this. Okay. That looks good. And then I'm gonna go select my eraser again and just slightly, with like maybe half opacity, delete some raindrops above her face so it doesn't create any weird shapes. They're gonna annoy people later. And as well here on the above the stone, because you can see the stone in the front is already out of focus again, so it looks weird when the rain is in focus. I'm just gonna delete parts of it here as well. Maybe delete a couple of spots in the middle so it doesn't look too uniform, because rain is really random. Okay, looks good. Awesome, let's create another snapshot and see what this does. So now it looks just foggy, and now we have some nice realistic looking rain in the picture. Awesome. Okay, last thing that's missing are my watchers. So I'm just gonna quickly select these the same way I selected parts of the character before, with a quick selection tool. I'm gonna fix a couple of spots with the lasso probably later in, so I'm just gonna see how far this brings me. Okay, good enough. Trying to get as much of the legs in as I can. It doesn't select all the tiny parts that stand off of the character, but that's okay. I'm just gonna do that with a lasso. And if I hold down shift here, I can add and subtract. You can see the little plus and minus symbol. I'm not sure if you see them in the recording, but I can just add these parts manually. So like this, I can like cut these holes in here so I don't bring much of the background in with the character. And I do this just with my mouse. Sometimes when we're on the road, I do this with my trackpad on the laptop. You can get used to anything, pretty much. You can also do this with like a pen tablet, but nothing fancy for now. So let's just add the little parts that my selection didn't grab for me. This one here, parts of the back here. They're gonna be blurry in the background anyway, the watchers, so it doesn't really matter if it don't grab all the details. So I'm gonna get rid of the grass here. this. And maybe cut out this part, maybe cut out these parts. Okay. Okay, looks good. So I'm gonna copy this part again and paste them below my rain layers, of course. Paste, because I want them to be behind the rain, naturally. So I'm gonna go with edit, where is it? I usually do this by keyboard shortcut. Edit here, sorry. Transform, free transform. Then you can just scale these up, because I want them to be not too big, not too small. Just gonna try to find the right size compared to, relative to Aloy, so they don't look out of place. Just gonna place one here. Create a duplicate again. Okay, and flip that one over. Yep, wrong flip. That flip, and move it to the right. Maybe a little bit higher and a little bit smaller, so it looks like it's a bit more in the background. Alright, put it down here. Okay, cool. Since these watchers are in the background naturally, I have to add some blur to them as well. I'm gonna try to match the same amount of blur as in the background again, so the eye gets tricked. See, that's too much. Looks like it's not really in the background anymore. But just a little bit less. So I'm just gonna hit the sweet spot here. It's about the same level as this weird gray rock in the background, so I need to match the same amount of blur, so it looks like it's actually next to it. That's too less. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit less. About this much. Okay. Better do the same. So I can just go here to filter and pick the top one, because that's just the last filter I used. So I can hit that, and that automatically applies the same amount of blur. But the watchers are still way too darkish looking, because like they're out of this picture. And here it makes sense because everything is kind of contrasty, but I don't want them to look as dark because it's kind of makes them look fake, and I don't want them to look fake, I want them to look like they're inside the picture. So I want to add a couple of adjustment layers to them. First, I'm gonna go into the levels, and if I hold down the Option key or Alt on Windows, there's a little arrow here, and that makes, if you click it now, it makes the adjustment layer only affect the layer below. You can see that by that little arrow here. So if I change anything here, it's this watcher here, it will only affect this one, right? Okay. So what I want to do is I want to brighten it up just a little bit and get the darker areas just a little bit brighter, because there's not so much black in the background, and if they are really dark, it kind of makes them look unrealistic. Okay. Maybe like this. Just gonna make a copy of that one, make it affect the other watcher as well. Okay. And what I like to do in that case, that here it just still looks out of place, is what I do. I create a completely empty layer, make it affect the bottom layer as well. And I'm gonna grab my, what's the English word for it? Eyedropper. I'm gonna grab the eyedropper tool and select a color that's near the background. For example, like a greenish, grayish here, like this one. Looks good. I pick this one, and then I take my brush tool, that one, and select like a really soft brush, a soft big brush, like that, maybe a little bit bigger. Go with like a really low opacity, and just draw over the bottom part. And you see what this does is it makes it blend into the background. Yeah, and I can change the amount of opacity I want to like really make it match. And I want the bottom part of the watcher to kind of blend in the background, because they're hunters, they don't want to be seen, so they're really camouflaged. And just make them like come out of the background. So the head is really visible with the lights, but the bottom one kind of blends in and let the imagination of the viewer do the rest. I'm going to do the same for the other watcher, create another layer that's only affecting this one, and here I'm going to pick, because it's here in the forest, some more of a dark greenish color, like this. Paint over it, maybe a little bit brighter. Yeah, that's better. So like this. Okay, looks good. One more here. And I have to, because you can see there's like a little branch here. You can see this one here that kind of doesn't trick the eye now because the watcher is probably behind this branch, but it's in front now. So I'm gonna create a mask layer. Yeah, layer mask in that case. And here you can see I can only work in black and white in this layer. I'm gonna use a kind of smaller, biggest that branch, like this. Smaller brush. Pick a black color and more opacity and draw over it. You see? And what this does is, let's see where it goes. Where does the branch go? Stops here. So I'm just gonna draw to here. Turn it a little bit bigger and make it. Whoops, that's the wrong one. I have to create. Select the mask, of course. Just gonna go here so it looks like it's coming from behind this bush here. Maybe pick like a darker color like here. Draw over it so it looks more like it's coming from the background. Like this. Yeah. Not perfect, but good enough for this video, I guess. Alright, not too bad. But one more thing that really brings it in is if you take your photo and you're a photographer and you can, I'm not sure if you can see that in this video, really is, but there's kind of a grain here. That's the ISO of your image, of your photo, and it makes it look really grainy. And especially if you take photos in the dark or have like a really high ISO, you can see the grain a lot. And the watchers I brought in, you see here, they're from a screenshot, and a screenshot doesn't have any grain to it unless they make it like artificially. So the image has grain and the watcher doesn't have grain, and that makes it look, even though it's the same amount of blurriness, it makes it look like not part of the picture. And what I do is I select this kind of watcher. Let's go in where we can see here. You see, no grain, here's grain. And what you can do is go to filter, go to, where is it? Distort, no. Sharpen, somewhere, noise, right. And go to add noise. You can see that's a bit too much, so what you can do here is go to just a tiny amount of grain. Let's go with like, just manually to like maybe 6, and maybe 1%, 2%, 1%. Like this. Okay. That looks good. It's not the exact same type of grain, but it just helps to make them, if you zoom out, you don't see the difference anymore. It just makes them look like they were part of the image to begin with. Probably don't see that if you just upload it to Facebook, but if you make like a print, or print it really big, you will see the difference. So I will add this to this layer as well. And I think that does it for now. Let's create another snapshot. You can see the image we brought in first, really dark. Then we changed like a couple of things. Yeah, got rid of the folds here, the wrinkles on her chin, then added some contrast, added the rain special effect, and added some watchers special effects to it. Awesome. So I think the image is about done. Now what I do before I upload anything is you can make Photoshop make it look like you had a really expensive camera. And for that I save the image first, and then I go to flatten image, which basically like flattens all the layers you have. And then I will change the image size, which you can also do here by going to image and image size. And the screen resolution you need is 72 pixels per inch. And I don't know, good height or the good dimensions to upload a photo on the internet is probably about like 2000 pixels, more than enough. And a nice effect you can use is go to filter, go to sharpen, and go to unsharp mask. That's the last one here below. And here, if you set your radius and the mount just right, maybe like this, you can see it here in the preview. I'm not sure if that translates well to the recording on YouTube, so I'm gonna just use a little bit more than I would probably do, just so you can see the difference. And that, what this does is it makes your image more sharp, more in focus, more crisp. So if you look at the person here, and I turn preview off and on again, you can see what this does, and it just makes it look a lot more fancy. And I do that for pretty much every image, maybe not to that degree, but that makes it look a lot more in focus and like you used a really awesome camera. Awesome. Okay. And whoop, that's it pretty much. Let's see, compare one more to the beginning. Looks like this. And to the end. Whoops. Maybe not to the end, because I changed another snapshot. Alright. And that's how you get from a boring looking image to an interesting looking image. So, I hope this was interesting to you and it helps you edit your own photos as well. If you have any comments or questions, just write me in the comments below. I will try to read them as much as I can if I have the time. And please don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video interesting. Let me know what you think about this type of video recording, if it's helpful or not, and I'll try to help you out as I can. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.